Okay, welcome back to another edition of Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, and I am still your host, Stephen Edwards. All right, so we've been talking in the last few episodes about the need to change the way we look at things, to not just look at them differently, but see them differently with new eyes, with our real eyes, our feelings, through our intuition and our heart. As opposed to our feelings, which come from primal emotions, and our thoughts that are exacerbated by those emotions. So we first see with our heart, and then we use our brain as the agent to fulfill our heart's desires. A different way of being. Actually, it is being as opposed to doing. Being a human being as opposed to being a human doing. And we said from the beginning, this whole series is about finding certainty and meaning in all the chaos and mayhem. And since this series started just a few months ago, the chaos and mayhem has just exploded, right? And now we find ourselves in, like I said, 32 wars. And the primary one that seems to be right in front of us constantly now, every day, of course, is the war in Israel, which is really between Israel and Hamas, or is it? Is it a microcosm of what is really going on inside of us? The war, the spiritual war that we are fighting inside of ourselves as we go through a transformation. That as we live in this universe that is created through vibration, sound in the beginning was the word is a vibration. It creates this universe, the speed of the vibration is increasing. It's in a distorted state right now, chaotic state, which is causing all this chaos and mayhem in every single area of our lives, in our personal lives, in our relationships, in our businesses, in our careers, and in ourselves, right? Which is where it all stems from. So, yeah, of course, we talked about this, that, from a bigger perspective, just in the war situation, we've got it could be spills over to Palestine and Israel. The United States is involved, China, Iran, Russia, everywhere, everything, everywhere, all at once, right? And so we want to move from a world that is driven by the brain, the mind, which creates a mind-driven, controlled environment that is driven by crime and punishment, which is not law and order, right? In fact, it creates the exact opposite effect, and over time, it gets even more chaotic, and there's even less law and order. So let's talk about law and order for a minute. So there are laws of nature, right? That, we're born from nature, and then we are supposed to be born into nurture. We say we raise our children. Listen, you raise cattle. You're supposed to nurture children, right? And so we live in a karmic reality. What does that mean? It means, well, if you do something good will happen to you. No, it doesn't. It just means action. Karma means action. For every action we take, we move this molecular structure, if you like, of the universe. And then we go beyond molecules into the quantum world. And we just see that if we move our hand, we move molecules. Feel it. Just move it in front of your face. You can feel the movement, right? So there are no absolutes, right? Once we get into absolutes, we get into problems. They are right and we are wrong. But what we always find is there's a gray area, right? So even in medicine, when you say, the Eastern traditions teach this way of healing, and the Western traditions do this, and it's all right or wrong, right? Well, the reality is there's room for both, right? Sometimes the Eastern philosophy, which is more nurturing, it takes time, but it's more preventative. The Western medicine, you might say, is more immediate. It's like, this is a problem, let's deal with it now. And if we ignore dis-ease, then eventually we have to act quickly. We don't have the time to nurture the cancer. You've got 6 months to live, right? That kind of situation. So it depends on the circumstances. We have an immune system that if we get into dis-ease in our bodies and we listen to our bodies, we tune into our bodies, which is the next phase of medicine, preventative medicine, rather than reaction medicine. And that's how we are in our world. We react to situations when it's an emergency. We don't listen to the problems. We could use because it's right in the forefront of our mind right now, what's going on in Israel and Palestine. It's been a problem for 75 years. Hello? It's needed solving, and now it's exploded. And now it needs an immediate reaction. And their reaction isn't pleasant, is it? No. So what happens is if we don't listen, if we don't react quickly, we don't resolve issues in a peaceful way. You see, our immune system doesn't kill anything. No, it just removes it. That's it. But if we don't let our immune system work, if you don't listen to our bodies, which we don't, we tend to be out there making it happen and stressed out, and we don't listen to the feeling of that stress. We don't deal with the stress. It compounds and creates dis-ease even stronger in the body until we do. And then we might have to amputate our arm or our foot or have chemotherapy or do these drastic measures which can actually lead to amputation, right? But it was because we didn't listen, because we didn't take and pay attention, all right? So then we're in survival mode, and then we go to war with our own body. So we might have to cut off our entire leg to save the body. And so we're going to war with each other right now in the Middle East because we didn't listen. We didn't listen, Linda. We didn't deal with this situation. And I know it's not funny. I know it's very serious. And I'm trying to make light of it as best I can. And I'm trying to convey the message with love and an open heart. But I understand it's incredibly traumatic for all of us, right? We see it all the time. It's around us all the time. But that is to draw our attention to it so we deal with it, right? So look, we go to war with our own bodies and we go to war with other bodies. And sometimes it's necessary to do that. So we have to ask ourselves, if we have to fight, that we're fighting because we have to, not because we want to. Oh, and what are we fighting for? Are we fighting to be right? Because that's not a just cause, right? Are we fighting for justice? What does that mean? Do we mean justice or do we mean to punish? Do we mean justice or do we mean we're fighting in retaliation, for revenge, to avenge? Or are we fighting because we just want to keep the peace, and as soon as we have dispelled the threat, we can get back to seeing the world with real eyes through our hearts, caring for our enemies. What does the scriptures all say? Don't have any enemies. They say, love thy enemies. What does that mean? Don't have any. So if we have to fight, it's not because we're fighting our enemies. It's because we're fighting a dis-ease in our system, in our society. And we've done our best to try and appease the situation. But if we don't, it will destroy us. So we've got to realize at the end of the day or the night that there are no victims or villains in the world. They're one on the side of the two sides of the same coin. And what we have to have the ability to do is see from our heart, see with our realize our feelings, which are a combination of our heart, intuition, and our CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. The brain is not the center of intelligence. When we see with our heart and look through the eyes of our heart, our feelings, and combine our feelings then with thoughts from our heart, feelings from our heart to our thoughts, we see things very differently. We've changed the way we look at things. So there are no victims, only volunteers. And it is our ability to respond that changes everything. So these are things I want you to contemplate between now and the next episode, which is coming out soon. In the meantime, saper ord, dare to be wise.